Good morning, everybody. So this is a roundtable discussion. Just wanted to thank Giuseppe and Chris once more for their enlightening talk. I think this was scheduled because we needed those insights first before we could have a fully informed roundtable discussion. So I'm going to present some context first, and then I would love to hear from everybody in the room, on YouTube, whoever has any ideas. And we'll go from there. So first, I want to provide some background on what exactly crawler protection is. It's an on-wiki solution, so it runs in the MediaWiki application layer as an extension that was launched in Sandusky, Ohio at the conference that we had last year in May 2025. In a nutshell, right now what it does is it denies anonymous access to certain pages and actions. Those are usually computationally expensive pages that people don't usually use. So for instance, special recent changes linked. I think, if I can quote River real quick, she said that like nobody uses special recent changes linked, right? And on most third-party wikis, yes. On Wikimedia wikis, I think they're actually used a lot. But yes, on third-party wikis, they're not. And so, you know, they're hit very often by AI crawler bots, and because they're so computationally expensive, they basically DDoS wikis. And because exactly what she said, it doesn't have very much relevance. This extension doesn't have very much relevance for Wikimedia use cases. However, it is open source on GitHub because it is really important for the community. It's been used by many of our peers here at the conference. I wanted to clarify as well that, you know, I think there was some confusion about vibe coding and stuff. Just to clarify, you know, everyone's welcome to put in ideas and pull requests. I personally, you know, will trust people to put in quality code regardless of your method of use, but please follow good practices of software engineering. Don't put in AI slop, this is security stuff, and please put in 100% test coverage on business logic. If you don't know what that means, that's okay. Just put in your idea and someone should be able to get it done. Anyway, moving on. I really want to emphasize that I know everyone has this love for Cloudflare, and it can do a lot of cool things a lot of times, but the problem is that it's like a huge platform that wants to control everything, and for companies like MyWikis, that simply doesn't work. But even for other people, like it's not a panacea. This is an example of some just stuff that I pulled from one of our access logs, and we were getting, you know, malicious traffic that was trying to like go through our server and, you know, access these admin or whatever pages, and obviously they don't exist. We don't have that. But this is a Cloudflare IP. If you want to go look it up, it belongs to Cloudflare. So we don't trust Cloudflare anymore in terms of their filtering. You cannot just rely on them for everything. So, but neither is crawler protection, I will admit. So it still has to load MediaWiki before executing, and I'm just going to jump right down to the last bullet point here. Any MediaWiki's extension's ability to block is inherently limited by not being able to do anything beyond OSI layer 7, the application layer. Everything below, like the network and stuff, crawler protection cannot handle it. AI crawler protection bots, crawler bots, they've started to find other links to crawl other than the main ones that we blocklisted last year. And it doesn't really protect against the API.php endpoint. So those are some limitations that hopefully we can address today. What has not worked for us beyond crawler protection includes rate limiting IP addresses. So if you install fail to ban, it might help with a few IP addresses, but scrapers now often use, you know, these huge ranges of residential proxies and whatnot, so rate limits have become effectively useless. Banning user agents doesn't always work. It might work for a few things, but about 98% of our requests come from user agents with Mozilla 5.0. So most scrapers usually use Google Chrome these days anyway. If not headless, they will use headed browsers, and that's really scary because that's very similar to what actual people use, and we don't want to block actual people. Blocking entire ranges of IP addresses either, it'll help for a few clearly abusive ranges, but with residential proxies and just a wide variety of providers that have both legitimate and illegitimate traffic, it doesn't work very well either. You have too much false positives, too many false negatives as well. So MyWiki's recently introduced some new anti-bot crawler protection measures. It's not open source yet, not because it's like a security by obscurity thing, but because I'm not sure if it's relevant to anyone else yet. But it's been enabled on some wikis. It's not part of the crawler protection extension, and that's because it goes a few steps further. The way it works is we leverage Cloudflare turnstile. We put it on a central clearinghouse page. If you visit a wiki on MyWikis that is subject to this protection measure, whenever you load into the wiki, it's going to check to see if you have a cookie stored with an auth token. If it doesn't, we'll redirect you to this clearinghouse. You have to go through a Cloudflare turnstile, what's it called? Like a check first, and then if it succeeds, you'll be redirected back to what page you started on the wiki, and you'll be let through. Our findings over the first or second 48-hour period over which we did this, only 1.73 of traffic was detected by Cloudflare as human. And in case you're Shane Hollander and you can't do math, that's 98.27% likely bot traffic, which is really scary. And we're assuming here that Cloudflare turnstile is precise at determining, accurate at determining human versus bot traffic. And this doesn't allow listed web spiders like Googlebot. They're not redirected in the first place, they're exempt. So, that includes that. The reference.
Why are you making so many burgers?
The recipe was for 8, so...
Okay, you cut it in half. What, you can't do math?
Leave me alone.
Okay, anyway. What? It's a good show. Anyway, this is a screenshot of what we had from Cloudflare. Yeah, 301,000 requests from Chrome. Mainly, I guess, yeah, we have like from Brazil and the US, Indonesia. But yeah, solve rate's 1.73%, super scary. If we dig further into that, we'll see that the source agent is mostly Mozilla 5.0. We have some Sogo web spiders, but it's relatively almost nothing compared to that first user agent. And as you can see, though, the source IP, yeah, we have like 2 heavy hitters, but from everything else, we have less than 200 per IP. So it's useless to try to use IP range blocking as the panacea. And yeah, I'm gonna guess that most people in the world don't use Mac OS 10 as much as I'd like that to change. So this is clearly bot traffic and something is wrong here. This is a really scary graph. The most common user agent string that we identified from this exercise is this exact string. That means the Safari version's the exact same, the Chrome version's the exact same. It's using macOS High Sierra, which is from 2018, same with the Chrome version. So clearly someone got lazy and they just put this in, or maybe they vibe coded something and it just picked this user agent string. And thankfully it made it very easy to just go ahead and block that string, but still like super scary sometimes how glaringly obvious these things are. So that might be one thing to consider. So now it's time for an existential question, and this is the reason why it's a roundtable discussion. What should crawler protection in the future be for? Should it just be a few pages and actions which are known to overwhelm server resources like it is right now? Or in certain cases, I've seen people take crawler protection and block all the special pages that they can without maybe exempting a few that are absolutely necessary to run. But that's kind of a nuclear option. So I'm not too sure where the balance is. I'm kind of biased towards the first because that's what I implemented it as. But I'm curious, does anyone have any arguments for one or the other? Jonathan?
Sure, so I guess...
Should we have a mic for him? Or? Yeah, I'll say that, well, there's several slides, unfortunately. So let me see if I can maybe pull up Zoom as well to see if it's like, let me share the screen. That should help. So that way we have, there we go.
Are they still there?
Yeah, I think Chris is still there. So, yeah. Jonathan, do you want to comment? Did you finish this? Okay, that's fine. What CrawlerProtection absolutely cannot do, again, is anything that's below the application layer. So SYN floods cannot be done. Slow loris attacks cannot be done. The header and content request speed can only be measured at the web server level. So at MyWikis, we've done it on Apache, and we'll probably be doing it through other proxies, and forward proxies in the future. So any proposals for these, I kindly request that they be deferred to a separate talk, because as much as I'd love for CrawlerProtection to protect against these, they literally cannot. So how should the block be displayed? Should we just emit a primitive 403.418 header without loading the rest of MediaWiki, which is more performant? Or should we keep displaying the pretty access denied message as a formatted page in MediaWiki? There is, I think, a form versus function debate here. We might even be able to have both options. Like some pages that they might legitimately be accessed by a lot of users, like a history page, you might want to keep those pretty, because the user doesn't want to be told like, oh, you're so stupid, like how could you try to be a bot? And that wouldn't be very nice. On the other hand, loading those pages takes a lot of resources if you want to render it the pretty way to not scare users. And if you're encountering a lot of bots on that specific page, you probably just want to get rid of the pretty, stuff and just get down to business and block them as soon as you can. Should there be any way to bypass it? Should we give exemptions to good bots like Googlebot? It's important to note that Googlebot, I know they have Gemini, but they still crawl respecting robots.txt. And if you block Googlebot, you are saying goodbye to your SEO ranking. So that is a really bad idea. At MyWikis, our clients see that as an absolute deal breaker, so we still allow docile AI, non-AI search crawlers. But yeah, should we give them special exceptions for special pages, histories, etc.? And must users absolutely log in to bypass it? Or can they maybe just solve a CAPTCHA or Cloudflare turnstile to gain access instead through getting an ephemeral HMAC token or something like that? Should we even go further? Should we start a CrawlerProtection suite that goes beyond the application layer? Maintain our own lists of abusive IP ranges, either an alternative to or to augment Cloudflare. For example, CrawlerProtection could potentially retrieve all the Alibaba cloud ranges and block them. They are known to be abusive. This makes me very sad because that is the only way I can escape the Great Firewall when I'm in China, but too bad, right? Or should we restrict these lists, as Giuseppe hinted to a trusted group of people? So I think the biggest thing is please join the Wart chat on Element/Matrix. That is where a lot of our conversations are happening, and we really want to coalesce on this. So if you guys can just join this, please, let's help each other out as much as we can, and I think let's start the roundtable discussion. Thank you. Does anyone have any? Oh, Jonathan.
What was the thought process?
It's muted, I think. There's a button on the bottom to unmute.
There we go? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, God, my voice. What was the thought process behind doing this at the MediaWiki level as opposed to the web proxy level? Because my understanding is that essentially all of the current functionality could be accomplished with, like a block of Nginx rules, which for a variety of reasons, for both like performance and ease of updating, is probably going to be more reasonable than doing it at the MediaWiki level. I have a lot of thoughts on this that I'm sure we can talk about later. But like, what's the idea behind doing it MediaWiki side? Because it kind of seems like the worst of both worlds to me.
This is a really good question. As you saw, right, I addressed already that we're limited to OSI level layer 7. So it's not like this is the the end all be all. It's important to get the context behind crawler protection. It was created as a sort of emergency thing that can help wikis. Oh, is there some echo going on? Okay, that's unfortunate. Back to this. It was created kind of as an emergency measure where we didn't have to like go and tell people like, hey, go install HA proxy, go do this, go do that. At the time last year, everybody was doing their own thing, and we never really had that kind of, we weren't really coalesced around a certain solution, and it was a lot easier for us to just install crawler protection in 1 minute on our wikis, rather than having to go in and re-architect our entire architectures, right? Like Canasta, I think there's still some work being done now to try to block it, hopefully at the network layer, as Giuseppe mentioned and Chris mentioned. So that's the historical context behind it. If we were to add blocks at lower levels, I personally, as the person who made crawler protection originally, I would say that it would be like a separate repo, maybe, like as part of a crawler protection suite, that where we could have like a shared approach towards blocking things at a web proxy level. But I don't want to just entirely nix out the crawler protection extension. It's still a very easy way for people to just install in a minute. So I'm not going to entertain getting rid of the extension. That's a non-starter. But we can add things on top of what we already have, if that makes any sense.
One more question from the audience, the YouTube live audience. How does this turnstile on every request handle someone who is using something like AutoWiki browser?
Yeah, so none of our clients actually use, none of the clients whose wikis have been protected use AutoWiki bot. And I think if, we haven't heard from anybody who needs that yet. So that's something that should probably be added in, but carefully. Yeah, there are other considerations there. Giving a certain bot or a certain IP or whatever a pass, like an exemption, is always riddled with potential dangers. So we have to consider that carefully. But I haven't thought about that yet. Good question. Does anyone else want to share their experiences, and maybe we can go back, or if Chris is still online?
No, hold on to that.
Oh.
Because you're the one I'm going to hit, but of course. So you might need to ask that. So, okay, sure then. So I'm going to. I'm going to talk, and here I am. I'm going to toss this over to Brian, because Brian, can you explain what we've gone through and review, partially even for me, what it is that currently we've got set up to help on the family search wiki, especially because we've shut down and blocked out a lot of stuff from my understanding because of the nature of what we're doing, but I don't know the specifics.
Yeah, so at Family Search, there's a lot of internal tools to the wiki, including crawler protection and others. But the big hitter right now, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you ask, is not Cloudflare. It's a tool called Imperva. And it's, at least right now, a bit more reactionary, where we kind of respond when we see a flood of traffic, and then create new rules to block it. And we have had one pretty bad block where we ended up blocking Google's ability to index the site, and then realized we were doing that. But that was actually, we realized that Google wasn't being smart in their crawling. They were also going through the view history pages and every combination of diffs there, and they thought that they thought at the time we blocked them, the family search site had something like 4.5 million pages, and it has 160,000, and they that would have gone up into the billions had they continued to attempt their crawling.
So what did we?
Or maybe, would it, okay.
What did we set up on the wiki level for, hey, yeah, let's be partners? What is it that we got set up on the wiki level in terms of authentication rules and everything, just to try to mitigate some of that? Because I know that the wiki is available for people to view without logging in, but most people are going to use it through an account through Family Search. And also for things like authoring pages and versioning pages and stuff. What kind of lockdown have we done on those?
Yeah, so a lot of the lockdown section is for a distinction between viewership and editor or other kind of moderator tools, and then kind of on the blocking. If you wanted to edit Family Search, you have to create a Family Search account, which is kind of handled outside the wiki. And then there's really tools like lockdown and CrawlerProtection that kind of prevents everybody else that isn't authorized to go to some of the links that are kind of the most expensive to serve that we're seeing the bot traffic from.
No more questions, Your Honor.
Actually, I have one more question, Your Honor. Does Family Search use CrawlerProtection? Yes? Okay. And how many, or what special pages are y'all currently blocking for anonymous users, and why?
We actually went with the nuclear route, which brought up some issues. There's a list on the Free File website that has probably a decent list of all the special pages that exist, and then green check marks next to ones that should be allowed. And that new list, hopefully will be getting updated today by Greg, represents if you wanted to do full nuclear, what you could do. I actually probably agree with Jeffrey at this point. It wasn't really worth it. There's a scant few pages where the majority of all the traffic that was crashing this was coming from, and those are sufficient at this point. Going fully nuclear only added more issues without solving any new problems.
I see. Okay, that's a good data point. Thank you very much. Daniel, I think, has a question.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
okay.
I can hear you.
So I was taking a look through the code for CrawlerProtection, because how else would I learn how it works? And I saw that there is no configuration option that lets you allow access to diffs. Now, having just tested this on the English Wikipedia, the normal diff request does have the same functionality of compare pages in that you can diff to random revisions. I'm currently looking at the difference between the latest version of the PHP page and the latest version of the main page. So I understand how that can be resource intensive. Is there a way to allow seeing just the diffs of, the current revision against the previous one on the same page, or allowing some configuration option so that a wiki can say, we're going to allow looking at the history, because that isn't one of the things that can currently be configured.
Are you saying just allowing a user to view the most recent two changes?
So currently you can configure what special pages are blocked, but if the user is unregistered, they can never have action equals history, a diff ID, a diff parameter, an old ID parameter, or a type being revision. And I'm wondering if that can be put behind some configuration flag.
But what do you want the configuration flag to do?
Like, allow. So you're saying like the current version of the extension says you can never access action equals history. I'm thinking maybe we have a configuration for what actions are not allowed, and by default it would say history, and you can add to that, you don't want to allow action equals render or action equals info or MCR undo or whatever.
Wait,
but
what code are you looking at? Because there should be an
the
option
latest
to
crawler protection.
yeah, but okay. There should actually be code in the future to change that. I might be confused because maybe I was working on a PR to change this, but
yeah, there is a allow configurable action protection via crawler protection actions, and
There you
that
go.
does
Happy
that
birthday.
does solve the action equals history question.
okay. Happy Hanukkah. There you go. So, any other questions? No, but in all seriousness, that is this is a great discussion. Yeah, we do want to add that, and my biggest question at this point is how do we want to organize all of the configurations? Because the more configuration options we add, the more overhead it is to maintain the extension, and the more that things can go wrong. The crawler protection extension started off as a 0 configuration, very opinionated block of certain actions and certain pages that we knew were going to be problematic for non-Wikimedia use cases. And now it's becoming more and more configurable, but I don't know. It is this philosophical argument between free will and listening to like the right thing or whatever that's supposed to mean. You can block more than just the recommended pages on whatever the main branch has, but is it a good idea? Some people might want to try. Other times it might be a bad idea to enable that behavior because we know that it's not going to be good or something like that. So are there any other like ideas on like what configurations you guys want? And then we can discuss whether they're a good idea. And maybe we can make that the last question because we are running out of time and we can discuss this further on Wart. But does anyone have any particular inclinations?
We can also discuss it during the Create Camp this afternoon.
Perfect. Yeah, let's do that then. So thank you everybody so much for your time. I look forward to hopefully figuring out for once and for all how to destroy these bots. I know that's never going to happen, but Godspeed to us. Thanks all.
All right, thank you, Jeffrey.